high pick because of their bad season last year. Everyone expects them to take James Jones.
That's Hunter's there. Hunter's there.
Hunter is there. Bruce Matthews is there. The Eagles might have a tough choice now, but they do need that big fullback to take some of the pressure off Wilbert Montgomery. And Jones really is the logical pick.
Yeah, but
the card is on the way now.
I think you can get big backs later down, second or third round, but a Hunter won't be available.
Here's the commissioner with the Eagles selection on the first round. That's Al Ward next to him.
Philadelphia Eagles, first choice in the first round. Michael Haddix, running back.
Oh, they lied.
Next
I didn't think the Eagles would do stuff like that.
Well, that's now.
Oh, they said Jones. They said Jones would trade for a veteran. Then everybody's blowing smoke this year. This is like a poker game.
Although in the last week there were some reports out of Philadelphia that the Eagles did have some questions about Jones, although they never mentioned Haddix by name. So
come on now, Howard, you picked him for your sheet too.
I know I picked him because
they were down together in
choice. I'm just saying that
we're off and rolling here.
No
the
second
National
guesses,
Football
Howard.
League
Come on now.
Collegiate Draft. Coming up next, we're waiting on the Houston Oilers and their selection. Already completed the way it's developed at this juncture. Philadelphia Eagles have taken Michael Haddix, the running back. Just prior to that, in case you're just joining us, Todd Blackledge was selected by the Kansas City Chiefs. Before that, the Chicago Bears took Jimbo Colbert, the tackle from Pittsburgh. The Chargers took Billy Ray Smith of Arkansas. Here's the commission.
Houston, through a trade from Seattle, picks on the first round. Tackle, Bruce Matthews, USC. Next up, New York Giants.
Tony Hunter. Tony Hunter. They've got
Now you can hear the fans because, again, remember the draft is here at the New York Sheraton Hotel, where the Giants and Jets usually have a heavy contingent of fans in attendance, and that is no different than today. You can just pick it up for yourself up in the gallery. We're waiting on the Giants pick. The Giants with their first round selection after Houston has taken Bruce Matthews of USC. We'll be back with the Giants pick after these messages.
Close a lot. New York football Giants, they will be picking 10th overall. I do not think they thought that Tony Hunter, the tight end out of Notre Dame, would still be available. And we're going to put that question among others right now to Dave Jennings, standing by with our Leandra Riley at Lord Jim's in Hawthorne, New Jersey. A lot of football folks gathered to watch the draft.
Now I am sitting next to one of the New York Giants. His name is Dave Jennings, and you never really were drafted. You signed on as a free agent with Houston and then ended up with the Giants a little bit later. But, Dave, we're going to talk about the Giants selection. They're coming up now. What do the Giants need? Are they going to go after a tight end?
Well, that's one of the choices. I also think that the Giants wanted a tackle on the first round, but the 3 tackles are gone already. So it looks like could be Tony Hunter, the tight end, or there's a safety out of Clemson, Terry Kennard, who's another highly rated ball player. So we'll have to wait and see. I know all the people in New York at the draft are probably shouting Hunter right now, so I know we have a couple of Notre Dame people right here, so let's go with Tony Hunter.
All right, straight from Dave Jennings, he said it. Tony Hunter will be next for the New York Giants. Let's see how true he is. Let's go back to New York and George Grant.
Really? Okay, thanks, Leandra. Give our best to David. One of the best in the National Football League. There's Tom Power on the right as the Giants are getting ready to make their selection. The Giants always with a big contingent of people here at the draft. Ed Croak usually around, Victor Gershio, Charlie Quatrano, and company. Tommy's got the phone to his ear right now with the Giant headquarters in East Rutherford, New Jersey, across the river as they await their opening selection. When we talk about what's transpiring with the Giants, you got to look back in their history a bit to decide exactly where they have come and where they are going. With George Young and company taking charge just a couple of years ago, Dave Sullivan as a wrap-up on their draft history.
The Giants had an off-season coaching change. Ray Perkins has gone to Alabama, and the new coach of the Giants now is Bill Parcells, as the Giants go into this draft with the number 10 pick coming up. The Giants have done well in the draft. In fact, in the last 4 years, this team has added a total of 9 drafted starters, including 3 first-rounders, Mark Haynes, Lawrence Taylor, and Butch Woolfolk, and only injuries have prevented Phil Simms from earning a similar starting spot. Woolfolk, Joe Morris, and Rob Carpenter give the Giants potentially their best backfield since the 1956 championship squad that featured Triplett, Webster, and Gifford. Rick Humphrey was a 5th-round find at center, and a free agent, Bruce Kimball, earned a starting offensive tackle berth only to break his leg during the regular season. The Giants were also pleased with the showing of another free agent, wide receiver Floyd Eddings. Now, the Giants continue to have problems, though, finding a quality tight end. Tom Mulledy, picked up in 1979 after being cut by Buffalo, remains the starter in place of a second-round disappointment, Dave Young, the All-American who played along with Mark Herman at Purdue back in '81. He was waived. Now, 3 other former Giants are starting at tight end around the league. Emory Moorhead with the Bears, Al Dixon with the Chiefs, and Todd Christensen with the Raiders. Alvin Garrett became the second former Giant to earn a Super Bowl ring in the last 3 years, the other being Raider defensive back Otis McKinney. Now that the New York Giants have a potentially superior collection of runners led by Woolfolk and Carpenter, the team will go into the draft and would like to add a first-class bookend type offensive tackle to power the ground game and protect the passer.
Thank you very much, David. We're waiting on the Giants pick. Tom Power still with the phone to his ears. They're waiting for the word from East Rutherford, New Jersey. What's our speculation here, gentlemen?
I don't know. I'm amazed that the gallery is so quiet. It's like it's either the early hour, you know, they had to be here at about 6:30, 7 o'clock that numbed them, or they're just as confused as we are about how this draft would go. But they're really, you know, in the old days, they'd be up there yelling, and they had hunter signs and screaming and jumping off the rafters, but they're just sitting there like they're in shock.
I think it's a bit of a testimony, and we've been here for many years, not only as our coverage with ESPN, but before that, following the Giants and the Jets and how they've reacted here, their fans. It's an indication that they maybe believe in the direction they're going in. George Young and the way he's turned things around, and of course the Jets as well with the way they've turned things around as well.
Of course, in the beginning, the fans were chanting a little Tony, Tony. But the Giants also like, from what I understand, Terry Kennard, the safety from Clemson, and Mike Pitts, a defensive end from Alabama. Remember, the Giants just traded Gary Jeter a couple of weeks ago to the Rams, so that might be a surprise possibility for the Giants there on this pick. And they might, as we said earlier, projecting Hunter, he could be the Kellen Winslow of this draft, and he's going to be a heck of a bargain for the team that finally does wind up with him.
Well, I think he has
been that already.
We projected him as some of us projected him 4th or 5th pick, and now here it is, number 10, and we still don't know where he's going.
Well, originally I projected him in the Sporting News as 12th to Buffalo, so that might be wrong, but we'll just have to wait and see.
When you look around the National Football League and evaluate some of the personnel people, you see a lot of Miami folks around, and one of those is George Young, the man who's heading up the show for the New York Giants now. This is the way he evaluates their situation.
We feel that we need an offensive lineman right now, a little more depth in the offensive line. We need a safety or another corner, because the corner can also play safety. I think we need a little bit of depth in that situation. An inside linebacker we're concerned about only because of the age that we have in that position, and a tight end. I would say they are the areas of concern for us.
George Young, as we wait on the Giants selection, 6 minutes and change, as we wait for the word from East Rutherford, New Jersey. We should mention, too, Tommy Boyster, the top scout who has put together the packages along with Young the last couple of years.
They've done a good job personnel-wise, since, as you pointed out, since Young came in. They've got the continuity now. Of course, Perkins did leave with Parcells taking over, but at least they retained most of that continuity by hiring someone who was already on staff. So whatever the Giants do, you know it's been researched, and they think this is going to be a player who's going to step in and play right away for him. Yeah. A few years ago, everyone said, well, they don't really need Lawrence Taylor. They don't really need a linebacker. But he was the best player there in their mind, and certainly Lawrence Taylor has proved himself.
We're waiting on the New York Giants selection in this National Football League collegiate draft. Already selected so far in this draft have been 3 running backs. We know John Elway went as the #1 pick. The other running backs that have gone, along Blackled's the other quarterback, and the 3 running backs include Eric Dickerson of SMU, Kurt Warner of Penn State, and selected in this first round by the Philadelphia Eagles, Michael Haddix. And he's on the line with us back at our ESPN studios. Let's go back to Bob Lee.
Thank you, George. Michael Haddix is on the telephone live. Michael, we must ask you, since Philadelphia had been throwing around the name of James Jones, were you surprised to hear yourself selected as a member of the Eagles this morning?
Well, it kind of surprised me a little bit. I went to camp a couple of weeks ago, and they was talking about, me real heavy, so I didn't really know, but I feel like they was leaning toward James a lot.
Michael, do you feel that the fact you played the wishbone where you're an integral part of the offense rather than just a running back, was a factor in the selection?
Well, I think my versatility helped me out a whole lot, and I think I can play running back, wide receiver. I can catch the ball and also block, and I think that played a real important part.
I don't know, Michael, if the Eagles have done much talking to you already, but you must feel good that the fact that you aren't going to be the only guy expected to gain yards. They have Wilbert Montgomery. Do you feel that'll take some pressure off you?
Well, Wilbert's a great running back, and I feel like that I will be able to accompany him a whole lot. And like I said, he's great, and I would enjoy playing the same backfield with him.
Michael, in the scouting report we have put together from a variety of NFL sources, you have a 4.0 and a 5.0 for receiving, which is to be expected out of a wishbone. A blocking grade, if you can see your set where you are at 4.2, you think that's justified? If you had to pick a part of your game to work on, would you say it would be your blocking?
Right, I think I need to improve a lot on my blocking. I worked on a lot this season, but I still have a lot to improve on, and I think that is my weak point.
I think your size and your speed are awfully high points for you.
Michael, congratulations. The #1 selection of Philadelphia and the number 8 selection overall in the first round of the NFL draft. Michael Haddix, the running back out of Mississippi State. The Giants always make news when they make a selection in this draft. Let's get back to New York City.
And we're still waiting on them, Bob. 3 minutes and counting. Giants waiting for their pick on the first round, waiting for the word from New Jersey and Giants Stadium, where they are gathered on the phone with Tom Power of their public relations department. The story at this juncture: 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 3 offensive linemen, and 1 linebacker selected in this draft, pretty much the way we anticipated an offensive draft.
Yeah, I think this Giants draft, Parcells being a defensive coach, you have to ask how much input is he getting in the draft. I mean, maybe it's George Young and Boyster going for Hunter, and Parcells, the defensive coach, saying, no, we need either Mike Pitts because of getting rid of Jeter or Terry Kennard. And I think that might be why they're taking so long.
And I think Green Bay is also sweating this out because I know they like Kennard very much. They know they feel he can step in and start. They're picking after the Giants, so certainly they're hoping they leave Kennard for them.
We're ready to go.
Coming right now.
Here's the commissioner with the Giants selection on the first round.
The New York Giants, first round selection. Defensive back, Terry Kennard of Clemson. Next up, Green Bay, to trade with New Orleans.
Okay, so the Giants have selected Terry Kennard, the defensive back from Clemson, the first defensive back taken, only the second defensive player taken so far in this National Football League draft. And gentlemen, that you can't say is a real surprise. Just about everybody who had talked to the Giants got that same word.
Bill Parcells said before the draft, mentioned 3 offensive linemen, and if they're gone, he mentioned Kennard, followed by Pitts. But the name of Hunter wasn't mentioned because they assumed that he'd be gone, and I thought that would be the thing that might change it. But obviously, the coach got what he wanted.
The interesting thing now with Green Bay picking, you have a situation where Kennard is gone. They also like Jimbo Covert. There's the feeling that the next best player on their board might be Tim Lewis, the cornerback from the University of Pittsburgh. But you also have to remember in Green Bay there's that controversy over Rich Campbell. Bob Schnelker has talked about problems that he feels he has in his the way he delivers the ball. There's a lot of people who think that Campbell was a bad pick from the start. Schnelker wasn't there when Campbell was selected. You could have a situation where Tony Eason might be the pick at this point in the draft, or even a Jim Kelly.
Or Kelly. And of course, you mentioned the offensive situation. We're still waiting on what happens with the Angelo Fields situation in the Mark Concord trade to see how he comes out. So we're waiting on Green Bay. Let's go across the river to Leandra Riley and get some reaction to the Giants selection of Terry Kennard as we continue our coverage of the draft.
We're back at Lord Jim's in Hawthorne, New Jersey, and I'm still with Dave Jennings, who inaccurately picked Tony Hunter was the next draft choice of the New York Giants. But in all fairness, there's a lot of Notre Dame pressure here.
Well, there is. No, I said Hunter or Kennard, but I also think the reason we took Kennard is because of the fact that 3 offensive linemen were taken early, and also I think the Giants feel there will be a quality tight end left in the second round when we pick a kid named Tice out of Maryland. Kennard is a good pick. He's a safety, and the Giants look for either a safety or an offensive tackle or tight end on the first round, and they got one out of those 3, and now we'll look for the second round, and probably a tight end on that second round, I think.
All right, whoever they select, I hope they're as articulate as you are. Thank you very much, Dave Jennings. Now let's go back to New York at the Sheraton Hotel.
Thank you very much, Leandra and Dave Jennings. We're continuing our coverage live and continuous of the 1983 National Football League Collegiate Draft. We'll be back with more after these messages.
With our live coverage of the National Football League Draft, Terry Kennard selected by the New York Football Giants. There could be a little bit of background behind this selection because in that defensive backfield is a player rep from a divisive strike. One of the more outspoken player reps, Beasley Reese. This man might be out to put him elsewhere.
Well, he might be out to, of course, Beasley Reese and Courier. The Giants feel that perhaps Kennard could move in, Bobby, in either one of those spots. Kennard, from the people I talked to, the top-rated defensive back. Now, that includes Tim Lewis of Pitt, the top-rated cornerback. Really no surprise that Kennard was the top-rated DB selected. And in this draft, Bud, defensive backs compared to defensive linemen and linebackers are the deepest area.
Well, I think his great strength is his ability to support against the run. There are a lot of people that play the ball relatively well, but if your safety or your corners can come up and support the running play like a linebacker, and you got that physical toughness, then you've got the ingredient that you need.
Here's a young man who plays zones very well and is considered to have enough speed with a 4.6 clocking to possibly play the corner in the pros if needed. Project him possibly, as you see, an 18.6 overall quickness, agility, and his ability to hit against the run and also against the pass. Let's get back now. Green Bay is up. We'll cover some of our other selections in a second, but what will the Packers do with the Sheraton?
I'll tell you, Robert, Commissioner Pete Rozelle has just announced that the Green Bay Packers have gone with the defensive back, not with Kennard because he was selected by the Giants, but with Timmy Lewis of Pittsburgh. So Lewis goes to the Green Bay Packers. That was the first-round selection by the Packers in that Bruce Clark deal. So Packers take Lewis, Giants take Kennard. Two defensive backs go back-to-back so far in this first round of the National Football League Draft. Hey, we'll go from the oblong ball this afternoon to the big round ball tonight on ESPN. Don't forget the NBA playoffs. Denver against San Antonio, live 7:50 Eastern Time, 4:50 on the West Coast. From the hemisphere, Roger Twibel will be there along with Lynn Shackelford for the start of this conference semifinal. I don't know whether you had a chance to see the final game on Sunday night on ESPN. What a game. Alex English, 42 points. Evans came up with those two big baskets, and it was Denver winning over Phoenix to make it to the playoffs. Denver was the NBA's highest scoring team and just beat Phoenix in overtime on Sunday on ESPN. You can see the NBA playoffs on your source for sports right here this evening, right after our Sports Center. So the story for the Green Bay Packers, they picked Lewis in Pittsburgh. Not a real surprise because they were looking for defense.
That's right. Their top two defensive backs were Kennard and Lewis, and as we talked about before they picked, that was a logical choice for him. So they feel he can step right in and start, and the team's upset right now, or Atlanta perhaps, and St. Louis, who wanted Tim Lewis very badly. So we have some picks, interesting picks coming up. Buffalo now with two of the next three picks. Detroit sandwiched in between. I know Buffalo likes Jim Kelly. Detroit might be interested in a quarterback also. They're unsettled situation, so I think you might see Eason and Jim Kelly going two of the next three picks, and perhaps Buffalo grabbing Tony Hunter as a tight end. He's still sitting there.
I was just going to say that. I didn't want to sound like Johnny One Note. Hunter, but...
Sean Farrell?
Sean Farrell, yeah. But it's just amazing what happens, you know, the way people stampede and somebody projected so high just keeps rolling lower and lower. But the thing that's sad right now is as each pick comes down, Baltimore goes deeper and deeper into oblivion.
A lot of the people they wanted are gone now.
Well, they still might trade for those two lower San Diego picks, but that doesn't look likely. And I think they're really emerging as the sadness story of this draft.
All right, we're waiting at this juncture on the Buffalo Bills selection. The Bills 4-5 in 1982-83 season. Waiting for the word from Orchard Park here in New York City at the New York Sheraton Hotel. Let's go back to our ESPN studios. Bob Lee.
And thank you, George. Chris, you have no doubt in your mind that it's going to be Hunter for Buffalo.
It's got to be Hunter. Going into the pros now, he is rated much higher than Kellen Winslow was. Going into the pros, I'm not saying that he's going to be a better professional tight end than Kellen Winslow. That's tough to do, but he is rated higher coming out of college. It's got to be Hunter. And Mark Bramer, they don't own a Winslow-type tight end, do the Bills.
Number 11 pick, though, overall in this draft by Green Bay, in a selection that they acquired from New Orleans. Tim Lewis out of Pittsburgh. You can see 2 interceptions and 1 sack this year. A man with 4.55 speed. Keep your eye on number 26. He's got it in the bloodlines, Bud, because his brother Will played at Seattle and Kansas City. Had a very good senior year. They projected an immediate starter.
He's got that remarkable speed, also the ability to cover man for man. And he's been in the league where he's had a lot of people throw the ball at him, so they're very comfortable of his skill and ability.
Broke up 4 passes this year, had a couple of interceptions, 3 tackles for loss. And then when we look at defensive backfield men, Chris, we rate them for quickness, for agility, for their ability to react to a pass and to force, come up against and play against the run. And it's a very good number for Tim Lewis. And again, number 26 out of Pitt, perhaps the best all-around cornerback in this draft.
He is the best all-around cornerback in this draft, Bob. And another thing that we should mention, he is rated an outstanding open field tackler. And if you're going to play man-to-man every now and then in the pros, you had better be a good open field tackler in this day and age of aerial warfare.
Well, Green Bay has selected Lewis. Prior to that, the Giants going for Terry Kennard. So a couple of defensive players, the first 2 selected in this draft. As again, if you've just joined us, Baltimore did pick John Elway to lead off the draft. We await now. Buffalo, will it be Tony Hunter, the tight end out of Notre Dame? Let's see in New York City.
There's the Buffalo desk. The Walsh boys are getting ready to see what exactly happens. Brian Walsh and Kevin Walsh, they've been doing it for a lot of years with the Buffalo folks here. In fact, they were here last year. There we go. We're waiting on the selection. I think they're trying to pull one of the National Football League officials over to get the full reading on exactly what they're going to do with their car. They're waiting. They're talking to Orchard Park right now. Neither one of these 2 gentlemen, the 2 Walshes, work full-time for the Buffalo Bills. We should point out that's really true of most of the people that are here. They are friends of friends, that kind of a situation.
I think they stay in this room year-round.
That's right. They come out and be a long lot of years.
This we were talking about Detroit pick, you know, needing a back because Billy Sims might go with his agent to the USFL in 2 years. James Jones, who we thought the Eagles might pick, I'm looking at my notes now, and I talked to Lynn Stiles, and he said he was concerned about a numbness caused by a spur between the 5th and 6th vertebrae. Now, I don't know whether that vertebra information has gotten out, and maybe that's what's keeping Jones down, but it would be logical that Detroit would pick him, and if not, then you have to be concerned about the physical.
How about this Buffalo selection? You know, you can talk it. This is the first pick. They've got a couple of them coming up. The first one is from the Cousineau deal.
I would say they're interested in Mike Pitts, the defensive end from Alabama. They didn't think he'd be here this long. I think that he would be one of their picks, and the second one would be a quarterback, Eason or Kelly.
Possibility also, we mentioned earlier, we talked about Hunter. Vernon Maxwell might even be a possibility with the linebacker situation. Shane Nelson probably will never play again because of knee problems. Isaiah Robertson doesn't have too many years left. So there's really, you can make a case for, with 2 picks, about 4 real solid players that the Bills will come up with, and they probably can't go wrong on whichever 2 they pick.
Is there a different feeling in the Buffalo organization this year? Knox is going. Norm Pollen has been running the draft over the last few years. With a new coach, is there a different feeling that you guys have read?
Yeah, Knox used to tell us, and Kay Stevenson won't. That's the difference. Of course, Knox didn't tell us what he was going to do last year, but most of the time he would. And Kay is one of these guys who's his best available athlete, but, you know, that Russian decathlon man is still waiting.
You know, for those of you that are just joining us, we want to update you on one other story, and that is the John Elway situation. Elway was selected by the Baltimore Colts as the top player in this year's 1983 National Football League draft. There was no trade at that juncture. The word we got from Los Angeles, from Greg Wyatt, was that Elway, in fact, was leaning towards baseball. We're waiting for an Elway news conference that will take place later this afternoon. We're still waiting, and I don't think this is a story that's going to be completed until possibly this day is over at the earliest, or maybe longer.
I believe that Elway would go baseball before the Colts, and I know his father, I remember him saying, we don't want we don't want John to be another Archie Manning. No aspersions cast on Archie, but they don't want him burning out his career behind inferior offensive lines and being all beat up by the time he's 30.
Remember the Roger Staubach situation, or many other quarterbacks who have gone away to come back to football. You can take away for a couple of years, maybe a couple, come back again, and then try your football a little bit later on. It's a lot easier to do that than do it the other way around.
He can stay out 2 years and come back with no compensation at all, and the Colts would not even have a right of first refusal after the draft in 1985. So what I think is going to happen, though, is Buffalo is now, it's coming down to around 7 minutes. They're talking with Baltimore about Elway, and they're going to trade those 2 picks, get Elway, and then he can commute between Buffalo and Oneonta. And
that's right. 2 sport athletes. You can let her in both.
Who you're seeing on the screen right there is Tony Hunter from the University of Notre Dame, and Jan Van Duzer right behind him. It looks like there's your pick for the Buffalo Bills.
Tony's still here?
Tony is standing right there now.
I think
he was part of our NFL draft preview show last evening, and Buffalo, through the Walshes, have told Tony that he is their man. Now the commissioner will let all the rest of us know that that's the fact.
Buffalo Bills select in the first round tight end Tony Hunter from Notre Dame. Next up, Detroit.
Nice pick, Howard.
Next up, Detroit, and guess who's after Detroit? The Buffalo Bills once again. So we're standing by for the Detroit Lions pick. We'll be back with Tony Hunter and his reaction after these messages on the NFL Draft on ESPN. By across the river is Leandro Riley, who's keeping us up to date on some of the players' reactions and the Notre Dame contingent in this 1983 National Football League draft. Leandro.
I'm standing by with a Notre Dame fan, a Notre Dame player who was waiting to be drafted. Dave Durison, and a teammate of yours was just selected. What can you tell us about Tony Hunter going to Buffalo?
Well, I was a little bit surprised that Tony lasted so long. I think maybe the entire country was surprised that Tony lasted so long. But Buffalo definitely got a great choice in Tony Hunter.
How do you think he'll mesh into the Buffalo system, coming from the college system and Gary Moeller?
Well, I think right away he's going to have an impact on the NFL. Tony's, say, a clone to a Kellen Winslow or Ozzie Newsome or someone like that. And I think Tony's going to really show up the league. I think he's going to do a great job.
Okay, you're still waiting. Are you nervous at all sitting here waiting to be drafted?
Well, yeah, you know, I think right now I'm just going back in retrospect about my entire career as a high school player, as a college player, just trying to rehash the entire thing, just waiting.
Okay, good luck to you, and we'll be watching for your reaction in just a moment. Now let's go back to New York.
Thank you, Leandra. The card you see belongs to the Detroit Lions in their first-round selection as Pete Rozelle discusses it with Al Ward.
Detroit Lions, first pick in the first round. James Jones, fullback, Florida. Next up, Buffalo through a previous trade with Cleveland.
So there is where James Jones has gone.
Yeah, now the quarterback, it's the quarterback position or Pitts. I would say either Eason or Kelly as the quarterback for Buffalo, or defensive end Mike Pitts.
That sounds pretty much. I had projected Vernon Maxwell, but probably as the draft stands right now, I had Pitts and Eason being gone already, and Kelly being gone as well. So I would think that would be the logical pick for Buffalo. Of course, remember, they drafted Matt Kofler on the second round last year. A lot of people are wondering why would they be looking for a quarterback when they have Kofler. There is the feeling that his arm isn't strong enough to go through the wind in Buffalo in the cold weather. But it's going to be interesting to see exactly what they do.
And my other question, too, in addition to the Kofler situation, was the dollars they paid Kofler.
That's right. They paid him
big bucks, and now you're talking about bringing in another quarterback. So one has got to go, and whoever comes in, if it is one of these rookie quarterbacks, they're going to ask for big dollars, too, no doubt.
That's true. Kofler had an offer from the Canadian League last year, and the Bills came up with a heck of an offer to keep him. So obviously they thought highly of him last year. So
and Case Stevenson was in his corner. You liked him. You know, there's an interesting pick coming up. If Pitts slips through to Atlanta, they would just jump for joy. They liked him so much that they were willing to trade up to Philadelphia's spot to get him.
Okay, keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, watch him. I mean, Dan Henning will go out and celebrate tonight if Pitts is still available.
All right. Sal Marciano is standing by with somebody who may be doing some celebrating before this day is over, too. Sal?
Okay, George, you know that Notre Dame is very tough on their athletes. Tony Hunter is cutting school today because he's at the NFL draft. He's been picked by the Buffalo Bills. Give me your reaction to playing with the Bills.
Well, you know, I had a feeling that Buffalo would draft me if I would be around. I talked to the head coach, Kay Stevenson, and he told me that if I was around, he would draft me, and I'm real happy about it.
You're 6'4", 230. They timed you in 4.66 in the 40. You're an All-American basketball player as well as football player. Shows me that you're an athlete for sure.
Well, yeah, I thank God. He's blessed me with a lot of athletic ability, and I think it's up to me right now to get into professional football and to use that to the utmost. And again, there's 3 people I would really like to thank. And first of all, I would like to thank God, because a lot of things have gone well for me in my life. And secondly, I'd like to thank my mother, a very special lady. And next, I want to thank the Bills organization for having faith in me.
Tony, you're from Cincinnati. During this restless night that you had here in New York, were you at any point rooting that perhaps the Bengals might be in a position to draft?
Well, you know, I was pretty open-minded about it, because, you know, everybody was saying it was going to be either L.A. or it was going to be Denver, and nobody knew for sure. Everybody was speculating on it. So I just kind of kept an open mind, and it was just I knew that wherever I would be going would be for the best.
Best of luck in the pros to you, Tony Hunter, Notre Dame. Congratulations, picked by the Buffalo Bills. Now let's return to our guys at ESPN.
Thank you, Sal. And let's backtrack just a bit as we are awaiting Buffalo's second pick in the first round and go back overall to the number 6 selection belonging to Chicago in the first round of this draft. We're speaking about offensive tackle Jimbo Covert out of the University of Pittsburgh, one of the premier offensive linemen, obviously, as seen by the way he was selected. Dick Steinberg of the New England Patriots, player personnel man, knows his people around the pros, and here are his thoughts on Jimbo.
Jimbo Covert is just a big, physical, tough guy. I mean, he's mentally tough, and he's physically strong enough to knock people off the line of scrimmage. You can't jerk him or pull him rushing the passer. He's not the niftiest guy in the world, but he's so big and so strong, and he's a long way to get around protecting, and he's got good technique. All those pit linemen block just like the NFL guys do.
One of the few Panthers this past year, Jim Covert, who did not get graded down. And let's look at the offensive line and see that the people that were starting at the end of the year put Jimbo Covert in there as a rookie. Also, though, Chris, you have to consider Dennis Lick, Ted Albrecht, and Keith Van Horn. Injuries and inconsistency have been questions there. So not necessarily it'll be Neal and Hartnett who will be the people that he'll be fighting for jobs in there. Scouting-wise, strength, quickness for the run and for the pass, and 18-9.
Yeah, look, the Bears, it's obvious they need some help. They finally have a quarterback, as we mentioned before, in Jim McMahon. Jim McMahon doesn't have the greatest of knees in the world. He's not the most mobile back there. And Walter Payton the last couple of years has sued for non-support. So perhaps with Covert, 280 pounds, that's one of the heaviest listings. You know, most of these guys are 265, 270, but 280. So it will take a few seconds to get around Covert if he is in there, and that's the time they need, McMahon needs to throw the ball down. But a good choice for the Bears.
Here's a fellow who was a defensive lineman at one point, Bud, and has a bit of a nasty streak, which you've got to have to play in the pits like that in the trenches.
I think you have to have it to be a football player. But the key thing about Covert is his strength and his mental toughness and his really true aggressiveness.
He is 6'5", 280 pounds, timed at 5.15, but you're not necessarily looking for foot speed per se over 40 yards for a tackle. He is the number 6 selection overall for Pittsburgh. Now, following his selection, Todd Blackledge was selected by Kansas City. We are awaiting Buffalo's second selection in this first round, to be followed by New England, Atlanta, St. Louis, and then Chicago selecting once again. We continue from the Sports Center and from New York City and from Los Angeles and from New Jersey with the NFL Draft. Coverage of the National Football League draft here in the Sports Center along with Chris Berman and Bud Wilkinson. I am Bob Lee. Buffalo selects next. It'll be the number 14 selection in the first round. It is a selection, their second of the first round so far, that was acquired for compensation in the Tom Cousineau deal. So Cousineau leave Canada and go to the Cleveland Browns. Now, we're working our way through the first round, dissecting and analyzing. We're up to now the number 7 selection, Todd Blackledge, quarterback out of Penn State, going to Kansas City, a 55% passer, good TD interception ratio, a Phi Beta Kappa, whose father coaches for the Steelers, and Bud, KC going for a quarterback.
Well, you were very strong when you said Phi Beta Kappa. That's not a bad attribute. And 6'3" and 222 pounds is also a great quality. But I think the number one thing about Blackledge is that he is a proven winner. And that's a quality that it's easy to talk about. Some people have it, some people don't. And over the years at Penn State, he has proven when the chips are down, I can make the big play.
Now, we had talked yesterday, Chris, on the preview program about Kansas City, about the Fuller-Kenny quarterback dilemma and how Makovic will address it in Kansas City. Does he address it by going in with the number 7 selection and saying it's your job in training camp?
I don't think he says it's your job in training camp, Bob. As Howard and Paul have mentioned, Fuller is still pretty young, but Fuller has had his opportunity to move the ball club the last few years, and Bill Kenny, too. The problem with the Chiefs the last couple of seasons is neither has taken charge, and Blackledge just may be that take-charge guy. I agree with Bud. I'm surprised that anyone even thought that Eason or Kelly should be rated the number 2 quarterback. In my mind, Blackledge clear, right behind Elway as quarterbacks go.
His highest grade, a 4.9 on the ability to read the defenses, and so a man who grades out to an 18.8, 5 beta. He could read. He's got all those 4-syllable defenses. He can figure it out. So Todd Blackledge selected by Kansas City. Following that, Michael Haddix was selected by Philadelphia. We spoke with Michael on the phone. Then Houston going for the offensive tackle out of USC, Bruce Matthews. Terry Kennard then selected by the Giants. And Buffalo Bills we are awaiting their selection. We understand that there's still some time left for Buffalo. Let's take a look at what Matthews will mean to Houston. The tackle out of USC at 6'5", 265 pounds. We grade him out to an 18.9, who might even be rated, according to some pros, ahead of Munchak already with the Oilers.
Well, I think that his scouting, universal support from everyone, and the fact that you play at Southern California, just to be a starter at Southern Cal as long as he was, means that you're a special athlete.
He can pull, he can pass block, he can trap. His brother Clay plays for the Cleveland Browns, and he'll help you at any position. He's right now a guard, actually, but at 5'1" speed, Chris, going selection number 9 to Houston, which knew they would get him at that position, so they traded down to that position.
I think so. Houston needs a lot of things. Up in the air the week or two before the draft, would Earl Campbell go anywhere, Bobby? Now that Earl Campbell has not been traded, well, we might as well have some blocking for him. So along with the Munchak who they got last year, now they have Matthews. Remember, Houston has 8 of the top 88 picks in this draft. So a big change in personnel coming next year for the Houston Oilers.
Okay, so Houston 1-8 with the NFL's worst defense last year, making an offensive move on the front line. Buffalo, on that selection acquired in the Cousineau compensation deal, the clock ticking down. New England follows the Bills. Let's get back to New York.
Well, the Walsh brothers are waiting to reach out and touch somebody from Orchard Park. We're waiting for their second pick of the 1983 National Football League draft. 3 minutes and counting, 3:40, as the Bills are awaiting their second pick. They've already taken Tony Hunter, the tight end from Notre Dame. That was their first pick, the overall 12th selection. That was from the Cousineau deal. Cousineau, who was the number 1 pick of the Bills, they lost him to Canada. He wound up going to Cleveland. The end result of that was a first-round choice for Buffalo. Now they're waiting on their own pick, which is the 14th overall pick. In between, it was the Detroit Lions pick of James Jones, the fullback. And let's speculate a little bit more. Let's go one step after the Buffalo Bills pick, and we go to the Patriots, who really had one of the best drafts of anybody last year in terms of numbers.
Well, you've got a real interest in Gary Anderson. The only problem there is that his agent is Jerry Argovitz, and they feel that learning a new position, wide receiver, they need all his time in camp. And Argovitz's style is to keep him out of camp until the very last minute, and they really are very nervous about that. But I think they'd take him anyway and hope for the best. But I really don't think they felt that Eason or Jim Kelly would be available. Now they have to reevaluate their thinking and see just how much they want a quarterback.
One other aspect of the Anderson situation with Argovitz is Argovitz represented both Keith Gary and David Overstreet, who signed before the draft. If they had waited till after the draft, they could have talked with every other team in the league. So it was interesting that they did come to an agreement before the draft. Argovitz is reportedly in line for running a team in the United States Football League in Houston, so perhaps he's taking care of his clients a lot faster and not having those long, protracted holdouts, so he can take care of his clients and then get on to the other business that he wants to attend to in his life.
Patriots have done well through the draft, first with Bucko Kilroy, and now with Dick Steinberg back with the Patriots doing their selection process along with Kilroy. They have 11 first-round starters, 11 draft starters. That's tops in the league. In addition to that, last year, they cleaned up in the first round. In fact, they took 7 of the first 60 players who were gobbled up by the Patriots. They took 11 players all told from the draft last year. So it's clear that they've made their mark through the draft to this point.
George, you're kind of stunning us with these numbers here. I don't know how to react to that.
Got them written on your chin.
Yeah, well, I mean, Dick Steinberg is a very classy guy. and one of the best in the business. And I just think he has to ask himself now how much do they need that quarterback, or the instant excitement of a Gary Anderson, who really was a tremendously exciting player last year.
And they did make a lot of trades last year, getting a lot of those extra picks. The interesting thing now, we're coming down to close to a minute left in Buffalo's pick, and there had been some talk before the draft that St. Louis might trade up with Buffalo to get a player that they liked. They wanted Tim Lewis. He's been taken already. Their next guy on their list was Joey Browner. They might be afraid that Atlanta is going to take Joey Browner, so they might be talking with Buffalo about a deal. Remember last year on the fourth round of the draft, the Cardinals gave the Bills their fourth-round pick for a pick this year, which the Cardinals eventually traded. So there has been prior dealings between the teams, so that might be what's going on right now.
They don't have to worry about Atlanta and Joey Browner. They like Pitts.
Let's update you on what could transpire if they go past it. Well, here, they've passed on the card now, so we won't have to worry about it. You don't lose your pick. You just lose in rotation.
The Walsh brothers fell asleep.
It'll make it before we get to the end. The commissioner with the Buffalo Bills' second first-round pick.
Buffalo selects quarterback Jim Kelly, Miami of Florida. New England Patriots next up.
I won that one. I got it on the second.
Okay, count one for Zim.
But I gave him
Jim Kelly, the quarterback of Miami of Florida, who had the separated shoulder, but is supposed to be 100% A-OK. We'll be back with more of the NFL draft after these messages.
I feel like I could add another dimension to it, like the fullback coming out the backfield to catch the football and just the tailback. You know, they don't have to take the fullback out and put another small receiver in. I feel like I can just stay in there and we just have a lot more diversity to our offense.
Coverage of the National Football League draft for the fourth consecutive year. Chris Berman and Bud Wilkinson along with yours truly, Bob Lee. And we await New England's selection, but Buffalo has just selected Jim Kelly, quarterback out of Miami. And he's on the telephone line with us now. Jim, congratulations. You were the second quarterback selected in this draft after Elway, John going first. Were you surprised to be selected by Buffalo?
From the beginning, I sort of thought it was going to be Buffalo. I've read a lot of articles. I've talked to many people, and I'm not surprised at all. I'm just glad that I was picked, you know, high up in the first round, and I'm ready to give him 100%.
Being pick number 14.
I guess, Jim, when you had the shoulder injury during the fall, you wondered whether you would be picked at all, whether it would heal. Obviously, you've satisfied a lot of the scouts, especially Buffalo's. Let's hear it from you. How is the shoulder?
It's excellent. I'm probably back to, say, 95 to 100%. I've worked out on a Cybex machine, and I'm very happy with it right now, and I'm just interested in getting ready for the season next year.
Having played in Miami, are you looking forward to that tight shoulder in Buffalo's weather?
I'm ready to play for anybody. Like I said, I'd give 100% for anybody. I went down to Miami. I played under great coaching, and I feel that I have the ability right now to be a good quarterback. And I just want to thank the Buffalo Bills for having the interest in picking me, and I'm just grateful to being part of the Buffalo Bills organization.
We're showing some highlights of you in action right now. The scouting report from a number of NFL sources on you, Jim. Really, your highest grade, the ability to read defenses at a 4.9 on a 5.0 scale. Do you share that opinion? You think that's your strength?
Oh, yes, by far, because I've had great coaching with Earl Morrall and Coach Howard Snellberger. They've taught me everything I know up to date, and that's definitely my strong point. I think that's going to help me. And I think it rates me a couple, maybe 1 or 2 years over a lot of the other quarterbacks because of my great coaching.
You know, you mentioned Earl Morrall, who certainly knows a bit about quarterbacking. You're now going to play for a team